Welcome, everyone. I am Robin Keogh, Executive Director of the Federal Employee Education and Assistance Fund, more commonly known as FEA. And this is week 2 of the Feds in Motion Challenge, an annual event supporting FEA's mission to empower federal and postal employees and their families to achieve their educational, financial, and career goals as they serve the American people. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for your support of the physical, mental, and financial health of federal families. During the challenge, Wellness Wednesdays are an integral part of our wellness theme, giving us time to focus more deeply on different aspects of wellness and to bring you information from experts who work, teach, and coach in the fields we're exploring. Today's topic, Nutrition for Busy People, is brought to you with help from our gold sponsor, United Healthcare. We truly could not do what we do without our community of feds and supporters, and United Healthcare has been sponsoring FEA for several years now. We truly appreciate their commitment to the health and wellness of federal employees and their families. To say a few words and introduce our presenters, it is now my pleasure to introduce Rontavia Briscoe, Health Benefits Program and Dental and Vision Program Account Manager for United Healthcare Federal Programs. Rontavia?
Thank you, Robin. And I will introduce first Jennifer Dougherty. She is a registered dietitian nutritionist who obtained her bachelor's degree in nutrition from the University of Delaware. She went on to earn her second bachelor's degree in dietetics from Westchester University, where she also completed her master's degree in community nutrition. Jennifer has worked in a diverse array of nutrition atmospheres, such as long-term care, acute care, bariatric nutrition, and personalized nutritional counseling for over 10 years. She currently works as a registered dietitian nutritionalist, providing nutrition counseling to individuals and groups at St. Francis Hospital and as a clinical dietitian at Select Specialty Hospital. And I'll also introduce Chelsea Malk, a dedicated athlete who earned her Bachelor of Science degree in dietetics from also the University of Delaware, with a long life passion for health and fitness. Chelsea has spent the last 8 years encouraging healthy nutrition habits and acting as a head coach at CrossFit for Rev Athletics.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So as we get started then about kind of healthy eating on the go, this is, I think, a really great topic to have and to start with, because I feel like anyone can utilize healthy eating on the go. There's not one person I probably know that is not busy or doesn't have a million things going on. So it's definitely something I've worked with a lot of my clients and patients with, as I'm sure you have too, Chelsea. So we can.
Absolutely.
So I guess some things, since that is such like a broad topic, I think one of the first things that I would recommend is, if you're trying to eat healthy on the go, you kind of have to have a basic understanding of what maybe that actually means. And I know where I usually like to start off is with the label.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to add that I feel like the biggest thing, and it ties into that, is that just prepping yourself for success. So if you kind of have an idea of how your day's going to go, figuring out from the get-go, whether it be the night before or a couple hours before, whether you're going to go out to eat or what you're looking for throughout that day. And so it does start traditionally with what Jenn was about to say, looking at different labels.
You know, the label also can be so confusing. There's so much to it. It actually just changed not too long ago, but what I usually recommend to keep it super simple is, when you do when you are looking at a food product, you always want to look at, again, the nutrition facts label. That's going to give you the most accurate, true advice of what's actually in a product, because as you know, there's all kinds of claims and things on boxes and packaging that can sound good, but maybe aren't really true to that. But when you do look at the label, I typically, number one, recommend look at where it says a serving size, because whatever is on that label only correlates with that serving size. And the serving size, some key things, because you're not super overwhelmed with it, that I would look for are, we're looking at things like fiber, calcium, iron, These are things that we typically like to look at the label for and try and see if it has a higher amount of that. And we'll get into the amounts and things like that in a second. But those are things ideally we want to see added to our diets, because most Americans aren't getting enough of these nutrients, but also keeping an eye out on the sugar, added sugars, and fats, as well as keeping those in moderation. But those would be just things, just as starting off looking at, I would recommend.
I wanted to actually follow that up. Recently, I just ran a nutrition challenge at Rev Athletics for our members, and I was super simple about it. I wanted to make it doable for everybody and achieve success within it. It wasn't necessarily specific to weight loss. It was just trying to clean up our diet a little bit better. And the one thing that Jen just said was added sugar. So I started off with the first couple of weeks of just trying to cut that added sugar out. And we had a couple members that were eating what they thought were healthy, you know, these fiber bars or protein bars that they got from wholesale big companies like Costco or BJ's or something like that. And they were noticing they had an astronomical amount of added sugar to it. So in reality, even though it claims to be relatively healthy, they realize they're consuming all this extra sugar throughout the day. So just cutting those out alone, they started to see a difference when they started to cut down the sugar. So that's something super simple you can do to not overwhelm yourself with all of the things that come with reading a nutrition label. Just taking that sugar out, that added sugar, and watching that. I mean, even I can tell for myself, my protein bar that I thought super healthy, I mean, it has about 8 grams of added sugar, which is a lot more than I thought it had. So I just wanted to add into there that that's one really easy thing that you can do from the get-go.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And where you'll see that under is that's one of the changes the label did make, which was great, where it says the total sugar in a product, but then it's divided up into how much was added. So what's added in the the making of the product, and that's what you were referring to. That's what we want to look for, keeping it as low as possible. It doesn't mean that we can't have anything with added sugar at all, but that's where you can see what companies put directly in there that they're adding in, and can be, like I definitely agree, a really quick little fix, and can potentially be lower in calories too. So definitely looking at that. And that's important, I think, to note too, is that some people will say, well, I look at the label and maybe it was like an orange. Well, certain foods do have naturally occurring sugars in them, and that's why you will see total sugars with a certain amount of grams. But like you said, I think that's the key, is the added sugar. Overall, the takeaway is keep it as low as possible.
I think that along with that as well, just staying on that topic, people don't tend to think about sugar necessarily. Yes, we know that sugar is not great for you, but if you start to add too much sugar into your diet, obviously we start to spike that stress hormone too, cortisol, which then it's just this never ending cycle, right? Because then we become more hungry. We are spiking our blood glucose levels, and then we're hungry and we're picking the wrong items to eat. And it's just a never ending cycle. And with that stuff, that obviously attributes to stress and fatigue. So those are just things on the go. You just watching on a daily basis, making sure that we're cutting that out. So therefore you're not hitting that, maybe that mid-morning slump, or you're crashing at 4 p.m. when you still got to go pick up your kids and take them to soccer practice. So just simple things like that is just where you can start out with.
And, with what a rule that I usually try and apply with a lot of the patients I work with is just, again, with the label, to keep it simple, so you're not like, oh my gosh, what are all these numbers, is the 5-20 rule. So when you see the percentage of daily value amount, if it's 5% or less, it's considered low. If it's 20% or more, it's considered high. So if you can keep, remember those two numbers when you're just looking at a label, it gives you a better idea of, okay, is this, low or high of a nutrient that I'm trying to, add into my diet, or, monitor, of course, too. Looking at the label, and now building from that, when we're going to be talking about what to eat on the go, I usually recommend, having a protein source, something with some carbohydrates, potentially high in fiber, and we do fats in moderation. So this little kind of 3-piece trio is something I usually try and recommend to anyone I work with, as well as myself, with trying to have enough energy to get through the day, especially with basically a newborn that I have now, so I'm not sleeping very much, so I need that energy. So I do try and make my snacks or meals having this combination. So I'm excited to talk more about that with eating on the go, of that balance that you're going to be looking for.
That could kind of lead us into somewhat of the next part. Just making sure that you're hydrated, right? Constantly carrying that water bottle always with me. Dehydration actually leads back to what we were just talking about with sugar. That's one of the biggest reasons that we crave sugar, is we're dehydrated, right? So listening to your hunger cues is something that I always tell people as well. Are you really hungry, or are you dehydrated? Are you stressed? Are you fatigued? So kind of knowing that about yourself, and then also coming to probably the next topic after that, just prepping yourself for everything. So knowing like, hey, my day is going to be super busy. I've got to go to work. I've got to drop the kids off at soccer practice, and I got to turn around. We got to make our second dinner, because I hear that's a thing, because I have a 4-year-old as well. So I understand the on-the-go lifestyle. Just prepping yourself for success, and then having that all set up.
I definitely agree. One thing to add to that too, a lot of times I'll hear someone is maybe not as much of a fan of water, or they just struggle with kind of remembering to get it in. So there's so many things that you can do to help with that. You like some flavor in your water, you want to do lemon, lime slices, fruit slices, a little bit that gives it a tiny bit of flavor. If that makes you drink more, then go for it.
I think that kind of just leads right into limiting high sugar beverages. I know a lot of us are quick to go for different energy drinks. A lot of those tend to not have sugar in them nowadays. However, there's a lot of other hidden things in them. So try limiting that. We also always want to limit our caffeine intake as it is. But, again, there's a lot of those drinks out there that are like, this is a flavored water that's healthy for you. But then you really look at that nutrition label that we were just kind of going over. It's got that hidden sugar. It's got extra sodium in it that we just don't need in our daily lives. When I start with some clients that I have, that's one of the first things I kind of go over, is actually when it comes out, I'm sure Jenn agrees, like taking small steps for success, right? A lot of times when we get in our head, we want to lose weight, or we want to get healthy. We want to start going to the gym all the time. So we're gung-ho about it. We're ready to go, right? But then we kind of get overwhelmed by it. Small baby steps, attainable goals. And one of those things is literally like, hey, do you drink soda? Cut out, maybe if you're drinking 5 a week, cut it down to 3. Start out with that and see how that works first. And then from there, we cut down even more, right? The last thing you want to do is overwhelm yourself. We tend to then set ourselves up for failure, because we've overwhelmed ourselves with trying to do too much at once.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. The key, like you're saying, is the small steps, and that goes with any little changes. Usually, my patients are constantly like, that's I can do that. That's easy. That's easy. I'm like, well, listen, you want a goal that honestly you think that it's almost too easy. We want to start there, incorporate it for at least a week or 2 before then we add to it or make more changes. Definitely will be more sustainable. I know it's slower, but you have a higher chance of succeeding with it if we do it smaller and take our time with it.
And consistency, right? Consistency is the key to everything. Like, even if you are stuck with that smaller goal for a couple of weeks, keep with it. And then we move on to the next thing, versus trying to, again, overwhelm yourself with doing everything at once and then taking on too much. And then we're like, you know what? Forget it. I can't do this anymore. I'm going to go back to eating that cookie on the go. I'm going to go grab that Coke in the McDonald's line, right? Just trying to set ourselves up for a better, healthier lifestyle for the long run.
Absolutely. And, again, it's about the balance. So I liked how you said where, if you are drinking 5 sodas a week, you take it down to 2 or 3. So it's not ever saying, I'll always say this to patients or clients, I'll never tell you there's something you can never have ever. That's a diet or total restriction and typically never works. So everything, in moderation is the key. And I, of course, like a little caffeine here and there too. So what I do is I try and make a rule. I've got to drink 2 filling up my water bottle twice, and then I can have, maybe if I do want a coffee or whatever it might be. That way I know I'm guaranteed I'm getting my water in, but I'm also still having something I like in moderation, of course, too.
think those are absolutely you hit the nail on the head right there. Moderation and consistency are probably the two biggest things that if you could take away from today, that's what you need to listen to the most. Staying with it and trying to just like still have those things that you want, but just making sure it's more moderation and not an overindulging.
Probably from there, now kind of saying, okay, well, what should I eat? That's always the question. What should I have? And I know we started to talk a little bit briefly about, balancing meals or snacks. And we want to do that again, as like we just said, it's all building up together, that in moderation, and you do the best you can with what you have, but we want to try and be as prepared as possible. So I love meal prepping and planning. That's something I'm really passionate about, and there's so many ways to do it. But we still have to figure out, okay, well, what am I going to make? What am I going to bring? So again, I always suggest try and focusing on some protein sources, carbohydrate and fat. So to start off with protein, that's going to help us to stay full. Helps with muscle rebuilding. So we want protein, but protein is not everything. We want a combination of food. We look at carbohydrates, which is actually our body's first source of fuel. Carbohydrate choices that maybe have fiber in them, because again, that will help us to stay full and sustainable energy. And then we look at fats in moderation. So again, I usually suggest trying to have a combination of these things when we're meal prepping or planning. And then we can start to talk about, okay, well then now that we have an idea of what to have, then we can talk about, well, what should I make and how can I meal prep and make this a little bit easier on the go.
So you'll get two different perspectives here with that. She said that she enjoys meal prepping. I do not enjoy meal prepping at all. I've actually struggled with that a lot recently myself, with my son now being in preschool and he's getting ready to start sports and all that good stuff, right? Work, sports, home, got to make dinner and everything. So at this point, I had to do something to make my life a little bit more simple on the day to day. So I've found some ways to meal prep that's easy and not time consuming. So there are definitely things out there that you can do. I just want to give a quick example of my breakfast. I try to, again, what Jenn said, you do want to have that balance of protein, carbs, and fats. So like I will do eggs, and this might sound weird, but I do a couple eggs and then I pop it in the microwave at work, and I've got some scrambled eggs basically, and then I have a turkey sausage with an apple and a little bit of peanut butter on the side, right? So you've got a good combination there. Not as many carbs, but again, easy. I literally set my trays up, pop those eggs in, put a little bit of cheese in there as well, get the turkey sausage out, cut my apple, and it's done, right? So Jenn, like, she likes to meal prep. I'm somebody who needs something simple and can be done quicker, because otherwise I'm just like, hands up, can't do this. And I'm not a cook by any means.
I love it. It's balanced and it's something quick and easy. Definitely doesn't take a lot of time, and you can use that for other meals too. That doesn't even have to always be a breakfast. I call it cold food prepping, which is essentially we want to have items that we can take with us, take on the go. Again, quick, easy options, but don't require a lot of work. But one thing too, right before I get into that more though, that I usually suggest is trying not to cook, prep, and shop all at the same time. Now, granted, I know everyone's schedule is different. That may not work for everyone, but I just find it to be pretty exhausting to try and get to a store. Probably not going to have everything you need. Maybe then you're trying to go to another grocery store, Costco, wherever it is, bring all that home, unload it. Now you want to start prepping it and all that. It's just a lot of time too. So I do suggest, if you can, try and separate those out. So I knew if I was driving to work and I was going to be passing Costco on the way home, that's when I would do that, rather than on the weekend, because it would save me more time. So, again, with time being the main component, and being busy, I definitely recommend if you can, try and separate those things out.
Just planning a little bit in advance to help yourself.
Absolutely. And I didn't really utilize it before, but then once I had a baby and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to take her and go everywhere and all these things? And then I learned about Target has the, you put in your order and they put it in your car. And I was like, this is amazing.
Actually, with that, I wanted to add into, and it kind of is going a little bit farther into meal prepping and whatnot. But the second part of the challenge I ran is called the 800-gram challenge, where you're adding in fruits and vegetables to your life. And the thing I wanted to talk about was that again, for this challenge, it wasn't necessarily specific to losing weight. It was just trying to clean up our diet so we could be a little bit healthier. So healthier to run around with our kids, healthier so that we could keep coming to the gym, right? And we're not fatigued and we're missing out on those days. And that's something that I had a bunch of members who just adding something as simple as fruits and vegetables into their life, into their daily life, ended up keeping them fuller and then kept them from grabbing other items, like grabbing those cookies, grabbing that ice cream, right? And I'm always, again, I love veggies, but they've got to have some type of like flavoring to them. So something, easy. I gave this to a couple of my members and they made them. And one of them even said, oh my gosh, my toddler ate it, right? I took zucchini and I slice it up. I stick it in the oven. Again, I am not a cook, right? This is simple. I just baked it and I had marinated it in Italian dressing, a light Italian dressing. And it gave it a little bit of like a pickled flavor to it. So it was a little bit easier to take in than just being a bland zucchini or squash that you're eating. And again, super simple, popped in there, added it with some protein, a little bit of rice, boom, boom, boom. You got everything that you need for the night. And it takes maybe less than 10 minutes to make. So again, that was kind of going a little bit farther in advance, but I wanted to talk about that before I forgot.
No, I think that's a great, again, quick and healthy, easy options like that. So it doesn't, I think it brings up the point of that, eating more healthier, nutrient dense food doesn't mean that we're eliminating flavor. It has to be boring. These can still, we want you to be having things that you enjoy. What I'll usually say to my patients and, again, our clients is, if you like what you're eating, you're more than likely going to keep doing it. But if you don't like it and you're forcing it down, it's, especially when you're busy, that's the last thing you're going to turn to. You're going to immediately be like, nope, I don't want to eat that. Let me just stop at the drive-through and get something that's not the best for me. So making sure you enjoy it is really important also.
I think that kind of all leads us into the whole idea of meal prepping and how to go about that. Again, so like what I was talking about, my own personal experience, like I kind of lay out my work week. I don't necessarily prep my weekends out all the time. I have a little more freedom on the weekends, as of right now, at least. I'm somebody though that can't eat the same thing every single day. So if you are someone who is like that, great. I know that one of our members spoke about doing like one pot meals, which were great. And they were prepping different chicken meals and then kind of laying it all out for the week. And that was their dinner. And then they had different breakfasts and that was their breakfast. And they ate the same thing every single day. So some people are like that. If that's you, that's great. You can go grocery shop on Saturday. You can then kind of take some time, carve some time out on Sunday to prep. For myself, like I need some type of variety. So I do like the eggs like every other day. And then I've got these little protein pancakes that I do. And I set that all up, right? Lay out all my little meal prep boxes and then get that all done. And then I kind of go from there. So I kind of do that on like Saturday and then talking about kind of separating it so you don't overwhelm yourself. On Sunday, I sit down and kind of think of what do I want to have for lunch for the week? What do I want to have for dinner? What do I want to make for my son and everything? So that kind of leads us into how you maybe want to go about doing meal prepping / grocery shopping.
There's so many ways to do it that I really do believe it will work for anybody. It's just we have to modify it and tailor it to and be personalized for you and your lifestyle, your schedule. And that doesn't mean it can't shift and change over time too. You start another job, different hours, how you prep before may not work, and we might need to change that up. So yes, I think just like you said, there are certain people, like my husband does that. Like he eats the same thing almost every day for about 3 meals. And then his other 2 are different though. So again, I totally agree. If that works for you, I think that's wonderful. But I also like how you're doing a kind of a mix of that. And I'm not huge on probably doing new recipes every week. I, again, just don't have the time. But what I will try and do is 1 new recipe a month, start there first. because a new recipe could take time, new ingredients have to get, maybe another trip to the store. But if you find something that you like, what I would suggest doing is, if you can, and it's going to be just for not even a new recipe, it could be just something you make for your family, is maybe if there's a little left over, take it and freeze it. Because the idea is that once I kept doing that, I was like, oh, in my freezer, I have some chili that I made before, or I have another casserole dish or a soup or whatever it may have been. I have like a few little servings of those. And then on those really busy weeks, I can just take that out and thaw it out. And I found that to be helpful, plus gives you that variety that you were looking for too.
Absolutely. Because there's plenty of nights where there's maybe one meal I haven't planned and I end up pivoting from my schedule and I get home late and I'm standing there, and at that moment, that's when we tend to go and pick something that we probably shouldn't eat, right? Oh, it's just so much easier for me to call the pizza place down the street, or let me just run to Wawa really quick, right? We'll be done in like 20 minutes. And then I can just sit and eat and enjoy the rest of my night. Having that is going to set you up for success for sure. Having that ability to just go in, oh, you know what? I liked that recipe. I have a couple of meals in the freezer. Let me pull that out, pop it in the microwave, pop it in the oven, and there you go. You've got a nice balanced meal for the night, instead of having to go and grab something that we maybe shouldn't have necessarily.
Mm-hmm. I usually would recommend, again, keeping it super simple. Those like cold food prep options I was talking about, these are things, again, that don't require any work, and can be just part of your weekly grocery store run. So I like to keep, I usually always get a rotisserie chicken. Maybe I get some lean turkey lunch meat, hard-boiled eggs, even if you're, busy, don't have time to make them yourself. They sell them at a lot of stores already done. I love things like Greek yogurt cups, cottage cheese cups. These are more higher protein items, but you can keep these in your home. You can take them with you. They can be used for any meal or snack, and we can add things to them to make more of that balanced approach that we're looking at, but they don't require any work. So I always have these as my kind of my backup options. They're always there. I can use them whenever I want, but if I'm just having a crazy week or don't really feel like making something, I can resort to this as a backup and make a meal or snack again out of these choices.
Yeah, actually, Jenn just mentioned cottage cheese. That is something right now that's become kind of like trendy a little bit. I've noticed, however, how great is it? Let me tell you, I have been adding it to a bunch of different recipes. One of the things I found, I add it to some of my eggs. It fluffs it up and it gives it that extra protein. So we had talked back in the beginning of this about how protein is going to help satisfy you and help keep you fuller longer, right? And that's what we were looking for. So we're not choosing those options that we shouldn't. That is something that's really easy to add, right? You can add it. I've done that with like my eggs. I think I added it to like a little chicken parm bowl, which was really great. You blend it up with a little bit of tomato sauce. So instead of having that tomato sauce that has a little too much sugar added in it, right? You just add a little bit for flavoring, maybe add some seasonings, put some cottage cheese in it, and now you have a protein packed meal. So you add your chicken, you have your protein sauce to it, add veggies to it, add one of those chickpea pastas, something like that, right? Again, we're not trying to say that you should be lacking in flavor or eating something that you absolutely hate, because again, that's not setting you up for success, right? You're going to tend to grab something else. And then again, we're going to have to start all over again process.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I've had the eggs before with the cottage cheese, and it actually is really good. I get looks all the time, but it's really good.
Delicious.
And
Yeah. Something else that is kind of trendy, and I think it's a great thing, as looking at different grocery stores for different already prepped ideas, right? So I don't go to Wegmans very often. I live a little bit farther away from that one, at least in this area, but I have been to them, and they have a great prepped food section with pretty relatively healthy ideas that you can just kind of go. Again, if you're out on the go, you really don't feel like cooking at all, go in there, make something, put together a little tray, and then bring it home, eat that, versus again going through the drive-through. I know Costco, that's my go-to. They have a pretty decent prep section for at least meats and whatnot. I tend to stay away from some of the other items that they have that leads us to obviously the nutrition label. So reading what they have and what they're putting in it.
Yeah, and also like you mentioned with the nutrition facts, Wawa has a really great website where, let's say, if you really want to know what's in this, hoagie that you're making, you can put in everything, and it actually gives you a little nutrition facts, which is pretty cool, or scary, depending on what you're looking at. But
Yeah.
it's kind of the neat feature that they do, and some. And that goes for any time, again, with talking about eating out, and it sometimes it happens, and that's okay too. We just want to try and make the best choices. So again, most more chain restaurants, bigger restaurants will have that, and that's just simply on their website, which can be a helpful tool, again, if you're trying to look at something before you go out, or you're like, I just don't have any food at home, well, let me try and make a better choice. You can always look at their website and see if they have that information for you.
Restaurant menus can be a little daunting when you see how much goes into it, and that sometimes can be a good or bad thing, right? It depends. Like if you have certain goals, right, and you are looking to lose weight, then that's great. I know at times, like if I'm going to go out to eat, I want to enjoy myself a little bit. I don't necessarily always care to see what's in it, because it's that one time that I get to go out and enjoy what I'm eating. But a really easy way too, I've been working in the restaurant industry myself in the past, and something easy that you can do just to limit some of the calories and some of the things that we don't necessarily need in our diet is asking them to not put butter on something. Because let me tell you, almost every item out there has butter in it. And not saying that butter is necessarily bad, but in the copious amounts that they generally put on in different items in restaurants, it's heading to that not great, right? Not a great item to have. Another really easy thing is say light seasoning or no seasoning, depending on which restaurant you're at. I know that in previous restaurants I've worked at in college and whatnot, they're heavy handed with the seasoning, which just then jacks up all the sodium, which is something that we also want to limit on a daily basis. So just doing little things like that can also help with healthy little tips for every day, even when you're going out and you're trying to enjoy yourself, but you still want to kind of stay on track, but enjoy yourself at the same time. So
I think that's, great thing to do. Just ask for things on the side, or you were saying to limit it, but you can always ask for things on the side. That's probably one of my favorite ways of doing like Asian or Chinese food is, let's say your basic chicken and broccoli. It's going to come in a heavy sauce, and it's usually a lot of it, most places that I've seen at least. So that sauce can be a lot of calories, a lot of sodium, a lot of sugar. So we're not, again, saying that you can't have the sauce, but if you just ask for it on the side, then you can control how much is on there. So I have found that to be really helpful. And that's one of my go-to, like I just don't feel like cooking, or maybe I don't have something ready. I can get chicken and broccoli or whatever, they'll pretty much do whatever vegetable you want, but I ask for it steamed and I ask for the sauce on the side. And then that way I can put on how much sauce that I want, but you're saving yourself potentially like hundreds of calories. And again, not focusing on the weight loss portion of it, but just looking at, okay, all that sugar, all that sodium, I usually won't feel very well if I do consume that. It lets you have control of it as well.
Talking about you don't really feel great in the moment, even afterwards, that's some of the stuff that you don't always think about, right? Like having all that sugar, having all that sodium, the next day, I know for me, when I have way too much sodium, like I bloat up, I need to obviously consume a lot more water, I'm fatigued. So, and that bleeds into the next day, which then again, now I'm fatigued and I don't want to necessarily cook. So again, it's just kind of changing your mindset with certain things and kind of, again, adapting to different ideas that maybe we can then continue on that healthy eating each day versus like, okay, so I went out, I enjoyed myself, but if I cut that sauce down in half, I maybe won't feel the same as I would if I had consumed all of it. And I think also grocery stores, that's something that really easy trick for grocery stores too is, and I'm sure some of you probably heard this, staying on the outside of the grocery store, right? They tend to put in the middle all those processed foods and whatnot. Staying on the outside gives you more of those things that don't have the additives that we're looking to not have actually in our diets.
Yeah, I agree. You're definitely going to find more, a lot of nutrient dense food along the border. Not that you can't find healthy choices within the regular shelves. So you definitely can, but that's where, again, we have to utilize, taking a look at the label, and making sure that we're utilizing that tool with us when you are looking. Because again, companies want you to buy things. They're going to put whatever they want necessarily, on the front there. And they spend a lot of money in marketing to do that. So that's why it's always important to try. Yes, you can look at the cover, but look at the label. That's going to really show you what's inside the product.
Overall, I think one of the biggest things is, obviously, we had talked about this in the very beginning, just that moderation and consistency, right? And then taking everything as a whole, what we just talked about, reading those nutrition labels, looking at what's in the food that you're picking, setting yourself up for success with meal prepping, and making sure we have that water, right? Get yourself a Stanley. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And one other thing I was going to also add to that I have found really helpful, I use it all the time. I'm actually going to be using it this week when I'm working, is something as simple as keep a little cooler bag with you. Got something that keeps your food cold. And I always keep some extra things in there that don't necessarily have to be cold. But, again, I found it so useful in times when, again, maybe I get out of work late, or now I'm stuck in traffic, and then you're starving. And, the last thing you want to do is necessarily wait till you get home and now you have to cook a meal. Like, that's when, again, you're like, oh, the drive-through sounds good. But if I have some things in there to hold me over, again, it's really useful. So I definitely recommend that. We covered a lot,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we definitely covered a lot.
So hopefully it helps, and kind of go from there. But like you said, it's consistency, and just remember, one step at a time with it.
Baby steps, consistency is key.
Exactly.
I wanted to thank you guys for that, all the information today. And Jen, a few points that I just wanted to touch on that you talked about. Jenn, last year when you were doing our meal prepping segment, you had talked about, and something you talked about today as well, is doing the shopping and the cooking on different days. And I had always tried to just cram everything into the same day. And it'd always be a Sunday, and that's where we get the term Sunday scaries, when you're just trying to prepare for the week and it just becomes overwhelming and it doesn't end up being a day off at all. Right. So that's something I really took to heart last year, and that really helped me in my meal prepping process, was just trying to split those two things up. And now with the online shopping, which makes it so easy, I've been taking advantage of it. We have, Target, like you mentioned, and Giant up here, where I can just sit in bed on a Saturday morning and put my order in, and 2 hours later go pick it up and put it in there, and I don't think about it until Sunday. But we are now doing the Sunday meal prepping, and doing it all at once. Really just allows us to use everything that we purchased and then stack up all those veggies. So we make the egg bites that are styled after Starbucks, and we just load them up with veggies. We use the cottage cheese in there, fluffs them up, and then, we'll cut up all our veggies, and then it just goes into everything for the week. And what someone would probably call a casserole, but the popular term is the one sheet meals, or the one pan meals.
The one pot meals.
Yeah, the one pot, one pan.
Yeah.
But just trying to stack up all those veggies with our protein sources and our carbohydrates. But that has really been a big help of not having that be an overwhelming situation where you're trying to do everything all in one day.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I'm glad that's helped, because it really is. And especially like we had talked about, like going to any of those stores on the weekend, everyone goes, and it's just, before you know it, your day's gone and you're just exhausted, or you have plans and then you don't get to do anything and then you're stuck. So
yeah, thank you so much, Jenn and Chelsea, for that conversation. It's great to hear similar but slightly different perspectives on a topic. And then I just want to say again, thank you so much to Rontavia and to United Healthcare for their support of this event today. And for those of you who are participating in the challenge and looking forward to next week's topic will be about financial wellness, and it is making the most of what you make. So I hope we'll see you again next week.